Spec sheets are made up of lists of parts that have been approved for use in your project. There are thousands of parts in each catalogue, so we have tools to filter those parts out and help speed up the spec building process. Now we're going to take a look at how to learn to apply those filters and find the components in our catalogue. So from Spec Editor, we're going to go Open. From our desktop, Exercise Files, we're going to go to 0203 using Common Filters and our LinkedIn CS150 spec. So let's just make sure that the right catalogue is loaded. We should be seeing here that it's from your desktop, Exercise Files, Catalogues, and your ASME pipes and fittings. So now let's take a look at the common filters. I'm just going to minimize the spec window since we're not going to be using that, and this gives us more room to look at the catalogues. So under the common filters, we want to start to just break this information down a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the part category. If we click here, you can see the main overall categories, and we can start to filter down from there. So for example, I'm going to choose fittings. So this is going to remove everything except the standard fittings. I'm just going to scroll down so that you can see here. There's no regular pipe, there's no valves, there's no flanges. This is just regular fittings. Now we can filter by end connection for this one if we want to. I'm not going to for now. We're going to leave that for all. Then we can come down to size range. If we have a minimum maximum size range, we can enter that here. So for example, let's say we want everything from a 1 inch and our spec only goes up to 12 inch. So you'll see now anything over 12 inches, if you look at your sizes, is gone. And we only have components that contain parts that fit between a 1 and 12 inch. Now that's the overall filters. Now we can start to filter using what we see here, where we have the long description. If we know that long description, we can actually filter for that. Typically the short description is one that we commonly use. We can come down and look here and say we only want to look for T's. Let's just come down to our T's and say just a regular T. And we've filtered that out a little bit further. Then we can come down and look at end codes if we want, or end types, and say just we want beveled. And you can see that this list is getting smaller and smaller. And we can choose a schedule for that if we just want to have Sched 40. And these are all the T's that we have. So I'm going to remove that here by clicking the little filter to bring everything back. And let's do the same for pipe. So we'll start with pipe. You'll see that it kept the same size range for us. So now we can go through, and if we want to filter by long description, we can just come down and say we want the seamless material. We can have the B3610, and that gives us all the piping options that we have available between 1 and 12 inch. And one more time, let's just look for flanges. 1 to 12, you can see in the size range that we're sitting right on 1 to 12. This one's a little bit different. We have a couple of more options here for filtering. So for example, we can look at it and say we only want to have weld neck flanges. So we can come down and choose a short description of a weld neck flange. And you see here we have a number of different pressures and materials. So we can come back round and say we only want 150 pounds. And you'll see it's returned down all the different facings here. So we can come back up to the facings and say we only want to have raised face. And this is the components that we want to have in our spec. So once you become familiar with all these different types of filtering capabilities that we have here, and if you scroll along, you can see all those. Anything that contains information we can use for filtering. Some of them don't have information, and if there's no information, it will read blank. We can also do reducing sizes. So let me just come back down again to our T's, or maybe we'll just pick some reducers. I'm going to slide down here to our concentric reducer. And we can actually take this one step further and say we have 1 to 12, that we want everything that is, let's say, 6 inch to 10 inch. And then you've got, again, so that's giving you a different set of sizes. And if we add that to our spec, it's only going to add the concentric reducers that conform to these reducing sizes here. So you can see that filtering is an essential part of spec building. And with the AutoCAD Plant 3D, the filtering process is pretty simple and easy to follow. Once you go through this process a few times, you'll be able to build specs quickly.